Most people begin a training practice believing they are working on their body. They want to get stronger, lose weight, improve their flexibility, build endurance, or simply feel better in their own skin. The focus is naturally placed on visible outcomes because those are the changes we can measure and celebrate. Yet what I have observed is that the most profound changes rarely happen in the muscles, joints, or even the cardiovascular system. What changes most dramatically over time is identity. The person who walks into their first class, nervously steps into a gym, or commits to a new wellness routine is rarely the same person who continues that practice years later. Not because they have perfected themselves, but because their relationship with their body, their mind, and ultimately themselves has evolved. The practice becomes less about achieving something and more about becoming someone. The beginner's relationship with the body. In the beginning, the body is often experienced as something that needs fixing. Many newcomers arrive carrying frustration, disappointment, or self-judgment. They compare themselves to others, to past versions of themselves, or to an idealized image of who they think they should be. Every workout, every yoga class, every healthy meal can feel loaded with expectation because success is being measured by external progress. This stage is understandable and in many ways necessary. Goals create momentum. Improvement creates motivation. Yet beginners often relate to their bodies through a lens of correction rather than connection. They are trying to close a gap between where they are and where they want to be. What they do not yet realize is that the real lesson of this phase has very little to do with fitness. It is about learning to show up consistently, despite discomfort, uncertainty, and imperfect results. It is about discovering that confidence is not something that appears before action, but something that emerges because of repeated action. Every session completed becomes evidence that they are capable of keeping promises to themselves. Over time, the body slowly stops being an obstacle and starts becoming a teacher. The achiever's relationship with the body. As skill, strength, and discipline develop, a different relationship often emerges. The body now becomes a vehicle for performance. Progress is visible. Milestones are achieved. Challenges that once seemed impossible become routine. This stage can be deeply empowering because it reveals a person's potential. There is motivation and mastery in witnessing the direct relationship between effort and outcome. The achiever learns that they are capable of far more than they once believed. However, this phase also introduces a subtle challenge that many people fail to recognize. The stronger and more capable we become, the easier it is to attach our identity to performance. Success becomes linked to productivity, progress, and measurable results. Training can quietly shift from something we do to support ourselves into something we use to validate ourselves. I often see high-achieving individuals reach a point where their discipline remains strong, yet their connection to themselves becomes weaker. They know how to push, but have forgotten how to listen. They can override fatigue, ignore stress signals, and continue performing long after their nervous system is asking for something different. Often it is a plateau, an injury, burnout, or simply a growing sense of dissatisfaction that creates the next stage of growth. The body begins asking for a deeper conversation, one that is based not on control, but on partnership. The longer-term relationship with the body. Those who remain committed to a practice over many years often arrive at a surprisingly different destination. Their goals may still matter, but the goals are no longer the entire reason they show up. What once felt urgent becomes less important than the relationship they have cultivated with themselves. The long-term practitioner develops a quiet trust in the body. Rather than forcing outcomes, they learn to work with the body's rhythms, seasons, and changing needs. They understand that there are periods for building, periods for maintaining, and periods for recovery. They no longer interpret every setback as failure because they recognize that growth is rarely linear. From a nervous system perspective, this represents a significant shift in maturity. The body is no longer viewed as a machine that must constantly produce results. Instead, it becomes a source of intelligence and feedback. Sensations, energy levels, motivation, and recovery are all recognized as valuable information rather than obstacles to overcome. There is often a softness that develops at this stage, not because people become less committed, but because they become wiser. They understand that sustainable well-being is built through cooperation rather than conflict. They stop asking, "How much can I force?" and begin asking, "What is required today?" That simple question changes everything. The real transformation. When people look back after years of practice, they rarely remember every workout, every class, or every achievement. What they remember is who they became through the process. They remember developing patience where there was once impatience, trust where there was once doubt, and resilience where there was once resistance. The irony is that many people begin training because they want to change their bodies. Yet the greatest gift of consistent practice is often the transformation of identity. The body becomes stronger, healthier, and more capable, but so does the person inhabiting it. Eventually, the practice is no longer about chasing a better version of yourself. It becomes a way of expressing the person you have already become. And perhaps that is the deepest purpose of training. Not to perfect ourselves, but to cultivate a relationship with ourselves that grows stronger, steadier, and more compassionate with every passing year.